This Three Beards Media podcast may contain mature themes, and if you're not down with that, we got 3 words for you. Like the podcast. Nailed it!
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of the Hawk's Eye View podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Barber, with my co-host, Drew Shipley. We are back for an exciting week, and this podcast might be exciting. We might score more points than Iowa did last Saturday night on this podcast here tonight, because that number was 0. Welcome to our opening drive. I don't know what else to say about it other than we got shut out. We both predicted wins. We got embarrassed. It wasn't close. Penn State's really damn good. Iowa looked, a lot of the old issues kind of came back that we were concerned about, and I don't really know what else to say. I won't dwell on it because there's not a whole lot to dwell on. I think David Eichel, Chad Leistikow, Scott Docterman, they've all kind of put out really great articles and or podcasts that you can go check out if you want to hear someone put it more eloquently than I can, or maybe even you can, Drew. But just any thoughts on last Saturday before we look ahead to this Saturday?
So first off, I would like to apologize that we did no post game, right? So win, lose, or draw, I think we owe it to the listeners to give a quick off the cuff. No matter how good or how bad it is, that was a shit show. I would have rather watched Ohio State, Notre Dame, which I did, the final fourth quarter, which was a fantastic football game. So I'd like to apologize for not doing that. It also, living out here on the East Coast, it's a little bit of a late start, 7:30 p.m. kick. Wouldn't be going on until 11 o'clock at night for myself. But that's really no excuse. We could throw in 10, 15 minutes and just say it was a shit show. We could throw it away and move on. But first off, apologize about that. Second off, I'm going to lay off Brian Ferentz for this last week. Is this the worst Iowa offensive line in the KF era? Because I feel like it is. And there's got to be somebody on that roster that can be some sort of improvement. Like, I don't understand. It doesn't matter what play you call. It doesn't matter what quarterback. Michael Vick, 01 Madden quarterback Vic could be back there and not make a play with this offensive line. I'm just so tired of it. Like, it doesn't matter what play you call. A bubble pass, it's going to get knocked down because they're going to be through the line before he throws it. Like, I don't even know what plays you can call.
Yeah, and I felt that the way that you're feeling now about the offensive line is the same way I felt last year about the offensive line. There hasn't really been any change, and I mean, we felt that way every game last year about the offensive line. I only really felt that Saturday. I think there was some success for the offensive line in the first 3 games. It wasn't great, but there was some success. But Saturday night was just, they were just a turnstile.
There was not one play where we pushed forward on the offensive line, whether we were running the ball or passing the ball or whatever the hell we were doing.
Yeah.
And the officiating in the first quarter did not total what the final score was, but it was trash. Every loose ball went their way as well. Everything just lined up in that first half that, we were fortunate to only be down. What was it? Was it 10-0 or 16-0 at half?
17-0 at half because they got a late touchdown.
That's right.
But it was 10-0 for most of the half and felt like we still, okay, this is really bad, but there's still some glimmer of hope until that late first half touchdown. Then it was really kind of, no, there's not really any coming back from this at that point.
Yeah, they ran 97 plays on offense. We ran 33. Like, there's no other statistic that you need to look at than, well, no shit, the defense isn't going to hold up being on the field 97 plays, no matter how good you are. Like,
Yeah.
it's impossible. I don't care who it is.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that the defense couldn't get off the field on third down. They had a problem getting off the field on third down, but and I mean they had that problem for most of the game, even early in the game when they were fresh. But obviously, you're gonna have that problem later in the game too, when you've kind of been on the field for so long and your offense doesn't even, because that's what used to be complementary football for Iowa football was offense controlled time of possession. They didn't put up a crap ton of points, but they controlled enough time of possession to where the defense could stay fresh enough to do their thing and keep the other team off the scoreboard a little bit more frequently than what we saw on Saturday night. Yeah, let's go back to the offensive line because you talked about how bad it is, and maybe this is where we can park on first down and just talk about that offensive line because I went digging through recruiting and basically, Iowa's a developmental program. And what I mean by that is they don't have a lot of room for error when it comes to missing on recruits. So, like at any one position group, you can only miss on maybe one or two scholarship guys per year maximum and still make a decent unit out of it because you've hit on one or two others. So let me just go through 2019 to 2021 Iowa offensive line scholarship recruits. I didn't go looking and digging through walk-ons. So 2019, Ezra Miller had to quit the program because of medical issues, mental health stuff. Tyler Enders never developed, never saw the field. Justin Britt saw the field, came in as a D tackle, flipped the offensive line, saw the field a bit early in his career. We thought he was going to be kind of a maybe 3-year guy. Eventually had to retire for medical issues. So top 3 offensive line recruits in 2019 didn't really contribute in their later stages of their career at all, like we're used to seeing. Noah Fenske was part of this class. I don't ever remember seeing him on the field. And I'm not trying to trash these guys. I'm just saying the usual development from Iowa at the offensive line position wasn't there in 2019. 2020, Logan Jones, starting center, currently, I think doing an okay job given the switch that he made from defensive tackle to center. Tyler Ellsbury, he does play. He's kind of in the rotation at offensive guard, but maybe not really developing the way that a lot of people thought. Mason Richmond, the left tackle, I think he's had good moments. I think he's had good games, but he's not really. It really wasn't the plan for him to be the starting left tackle for this year's team, and I'll get to that in a minute. Josh Volk, he was recruited to play offensive guard, no longer with the program. So we're talking about 2 guys, at least 2 guys in 2 years now, and then we go to 2021, and our top recruit in 2021 is an offensive lineman, David Davidkoff, had to leave the program because of medical issues, and he was going to be. I mean, the plan was for him to be the starting left tackle at this point. Like his pre-college comps from people at 247 Sports were Brandon Sheriff and Joe Staley. Like that's pretty good comps.
Yeah.
He would have been great for this offensive line. Connor Colby was our next highest recruit in that class as an offensive tackle. He's playing left guard and kind of a mixed bag at left guard. Maybe hasn't developed the way that he should. Bo Stevens was in that class. He's in the mix at the guard spot, but again, highly touted as a recruit 4-star guy, according to 247, not really contributing. So you kind of go down the list 3 years in a row, and it's 3 years of half of them are guys who are no longer with the program or never saw the field, at least half of them, or guys that were thrust in early and haven't really developed. And there's no one that I named in those 3 years, Jennings Dunker is 2021 as well, and he's right tackle, who has kind of developed to the level that we're used to from Iowa offensive linemen. So
Yeah,
for a
I mean,
developmental program, the development on the offensive line isn't happening.
and I mean, in the class of 2023, missed out on Caden Proctor, right? Flips to Alabama.
Sure.
That happens. Biggest statistic I heard earlier this week, Pro Football Focus put out the offensive line grades. I think Nick DeYoung had a grade of 6. That's like me getting an 8 on an ACT. Like 6. It's to 100.
Yep. Yeah. That's not great, but but I mean, Nick DeYoung was a walk-on, right? And we're looking to contributions from a walk-on. No offense to Nick DeYoung, love the guy, but again, like I mentioned, all of those scholarship guys not really developing to the level where we're used to.
I have a suggestion, Andrew.
Yeah.
Just to try it, right? So Parker Hesse, defensive end, transferred into tight end, right, in the NFL. Is he still with the Falcons?
Practice squad.
Practice squad. Anyway, they transformed him into an NFL tight end, give or take. We have a two-way player in Aaron Graves, right? He played offensive line and defensive line, all state at Southeast Valley. What's going to hurt putting Aaron Graves in their guard somewhere and just see what happens at this point?
Well, that would require innovation and forward thinking. And so that's why it's not going to happen. And
you're not wrong.
That's about as close as to the most negative thing that you're going to hear me ever say about the coaching staff.
Just try it. Just try it.
Exactly. And that's where I'm at, is like, we're almost to the point with this offense where you just need to start throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah.
Because you can't convince me that there aren't other teams out there that have similar talent levels to Iowa at the skill positions and the offensive line that aren't finding ways to move the ball, definitely at a Power 5 level. You can't tell me that at like Kansas, for example, that they're recruiting 4- and 5-star guys. They're not, but they're finding ways to put up points because they've kind of changed their offensive playbook and their dynamic. And it's a lot of these quick passes that get the ball into wide receivers' hands and they make plays. Now, they have a mobile quarterback, so that's something that Iowa doesn't really have with Cade's injury status. I think he'd maybe be more mobile, but I think there's ways to, scheme guys open. Caleb Brown and Seth Anderson caught the opening touchdown of the season, and we really haven't heard from him ever again. What are we doing?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. So I heard earlier this week as well, with the offensive passing efficiency, that every service academy is more pass efficient than Iowa. You know how many times Army and Navy throw the football in a season? There's an Army receiver that has 11 catches for like 150 yards. None of our receivers combined have that. Combined. Total as a team. What are we doing?
I don't know.
Army. They pass the ball 5 times a game, maybe.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you don't pass the ball that many times, then it's easier to be efficient technically, but that's not really an excuse for what I was doing on offense. Because remember, it used to, it didn't used to look very pretty even back in the days when Iowa was doing decent on offense. Like we talked about 2009 last week, Thursday. It didn't necessarily look pretty in 2009 for Ricky Stanzi when he was throwing the ball all the time, but it was effective. It was efficient at times. He threw some turnovers, but it was efficient.
No, I mean Ricky Stanzi had what, like 5 games with a pick 6 in it.
Yeah, he would be 16 of 27, 250 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Right. But maybe a pick 6 or 2 picks total. Right. 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, that kind of a thing.
And a dub, more importantly.
And a win. Right. But it seemed like I was more willing to throw the ball back in those days than they are now. And I mean, maybe we do deserve to give Nate Stanley one of the greatest quarterback awards of all time for the things that he did for 3 years in the Brian Ferentz offense.
I mean, it comes full circle, right? It doesn't matter what pass play you draw up, Andrew. Like, if you can't protect that, you can't protect a three-step drop. So, like, anything above that, what are you supposed to do? Like, you can't get the ball downfield. You can't get those long slants down the middle of the field. Just can't. You can't do it. They have no time.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of blame get thrown on Cade from people, and I was like,
that's garbage.
Yeah, people do that because the quarterback's the most visible person on the offense, and they handle the ball all the time, and so they throw it on Cade. But that's like you're saying, that's really not an understanding of how football offense works. So,
and I mean, at this point in time, Andrew, you got to be concerned. Are we even going to keep these kids with NIL or not? Is Cade McNamara going to go on to graduate senior Wisconsin or something? Eric All, Caleb Brown going to go to I don't know, Cal? Like, I don't like somebody that's going to throw the fucking ball.
Yeah, that's what I am wondering as well. And I mean, obviously this offseason is going to be huge because, and we can take a break after we talk about this, but I think I was obviously not going to hit the 25 point per game mark. I think getting shut out was a great indicator that 25 points per game is just not going to happen because we're still at 85, which was ahead of schedule through 3 weeks, but behind schedule after 4. So we're not hitting that with the way Big Ten defenses look. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a tumultuous offseason, even if. And here's a question that I have for you. Good chance Iowa goes 10-2. Are you going to be satisfied with that if the offense looks as bad as 2022 for the whole year? But we make the Big Ten championship because we went 10-2?
I'm so numb to it now, Andrew. Like, we've seen it 2 out of the last 3 years, right? Michigan boat races 42-3. We pissed away another one last year by not beating Nebraska at home. Like, what? I don't know, man. Like, no. It's not going to reinvigorate my outlook for the season of, oh, well, yeah, they're going to Indy. Well, guess what? It's going to be the last fucking time you go to Indy with a 16-team super conference coming in. You're not just going to walk over, Stanford and Washington and Oregon. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, the best you can hope for is an 8-4 season, and that's going to be peak Iowa, the way that we've currently recruit and currently play. I think the best we can do, and time in and time out, is 8-4 from here on out. But I'm going to throw this back to you, Andrew, because I alluded to it when we first started this podcast about the future of Kirk Ferentz sticking around at Iowa. Does your opinion change from the preseason of, does Kirk even want to dick with this anymore? Like, what are we talking about?
I don't think it is, does Kirk want to mess around with this anymore? I think it's Brian, in all likelihood, is going to be gone because the 25 point per game mark is not going to be reached. And I think because Brian is either going to probably not be fired, but I think Brian is 100% leaving the program, resigning, finding a new job, whatever. He's gone. I think that's a 100% certainty because this is not fun for him at all.
No.
Right? And it shouldn't be because it's not fun for any of us. But I think that could make Kirk say, you know what? Okay, yeah, maybe this is it. So I was kind of thinking about that when, that game was going down, and then in other things I've read, I was like, maybe this is closer to it than what I realized. So I'm kind of more with you that the end is a lot sooner than maybe what we realize, and that's tough, but it also might be good because I am afraid that if it's not the end, we're running back the same thing next year
We've
in
we've
a
we've,
lot of ways.
we've seen the ceiling of Kirk Ferentz. We have reached the peak has already been met. That was 2015 Big Ten championship game. That was it. That's the peak.
Yeah.
We've had a few more peaks, Orange Bowl, but like there's nowhere to go up from here with the Super Conference. We're not going to make another title game. We might make a title game once every 10 years. Hell, we could barely make it once every 5 years in a weak ass West division. Like I don't know what there's going to be to play for Kirk Ferentz. What is going to motivate him when he loses his son on the offensive staff, goes and coaches a MAC team or a WAC team, Mountain West? I don't know. He doesn't even probably deserve that, honestly. But move him back and relegate him to the offensive line where he was fucking good at.
Yeah. Let's hold that thought. I've got some thoughts about how to maybe fix Iowa football, and we can talk about that when we come back from break after we hear from our wonderful sponsor at Revelton Distillery.
At Revelton Distilling Company, everyone has become a part of the Revelton family. From the Taylors and their daughter who helped perfect their award-winning gins, to the team who installed Lucy, our 33-foot-tall custom-made still, right down to the local farms that provide our coveted corn, and even the cows on those farms who consume our mash byproduct. Want to see the farm to flask come to life? Now you can tour Lucy and find out where we take Iowa's harvest and transform it into our finest spirits. Choose between a 45-minute tour or find out even more by scheduling a VIP behind-the-scenes tour to get the taste of the full Revelton experience. You can visit them at 1400 West Clay Street in Osceola, Iowa, or find all of Revelton's award-winning spirits at any local grocery or spirits retailer.
Welcome back in, and I promised you guys that I would give you my perspective for a fix for Iowa football here. Brian Ferentz, Kirk Ferentz, not great offensive minds. I can't take credit for this because I'm kind of borrowing and stealing from the Men on Melrose podcast. David Eichholt was on that podcast, but he brought up a good point. You know who is good at coaching offense on the Iowa campus? Fran McCaffrey.
That's how we're gonna resolve it, baby.
So here's how we fix both Iowa football and Iowa men's basketball in one fell swoop. Here's how we do it. We let Fran McCaffrey coach the Iowa football offense. We let Phil Parker coach the Iowa basketball defense. And everybody's problems are fixed. The offense goes on to score 45 points per game on the football field. We win the national championship. Everything is great. The defense learns how to play defense on the basketball court. We make the Sweet 16 and beyond. It's great. Everyone wins. I fixed Iowa athletics in one fell swoop.
Man, I really thought that you were gonna have some like legit like.
Oh yeah, you thought I was gonna have something legit. Well, let's talk about that because I do think there is a legitimate fix. I think here's what I think it is. I think it is Kirk finally saying I'm hands off on all things offense. I think it's Brian Ferentz moves on, and then my vote would be to instill Abdul Hodge and Liddell Betts as the co-offensive coordinators, because we saw this at Michigan, right? Again, we took Michigan's quarterback, we took Michigan's tight end, trying to sort of copy a Michigan model, we didn't really go through it the whole way that we should have, because Jim Harbaugh did something similar after 2020 and promoted co-offensive coordinators in Sharon Moore and Matt Weiss, I think his name is.
Mm-hmm.
And that propelled the 2021 Michigan season, which led to the college football playoffs in back-to-back years, right? And I'm not saying we have that level of talent, but it was Harbaugh saying, okay, maybe I don't need to be hands-on with the offense thing anymore. I'll let someone else take care of that for me. Kirk Ferentz needs to make a similar decision, and I don't see anybody better than Abdul Hodge, because he's coached the tight ends. Look at the talent that we've had there. Laporta, Lachey before the injury, Hawk, Fant, Kittle. I mean, Abdul Hodge has done a wonderful job in coaching tight ends. And
Isn't
Liddell
isn't that wild to think of too? Because he's a linebacker. So like,
yeah,
how did he fall into the tight end role? But yeah, it's worked out.
yeah. And Betts has worked out at running back, because think about, he was the guy responsible for bringing us Goodson from Florida.
Yeah.
And also he's got Caleb Johnson and Jazz Patterson, and we know the talent of both of those guys. Those guys are injured. But that's the other thing, is both those guys have been very crucial, and Iowa starting to recruit Florida at a more successful rate again. Those guys are a big part of the reason why. So you let them take care of the offense, and they're going to start getting more and more Florida kids, a state rich with talent, to help them run that offense. And if we know anything about that, it means more speed on offense, more points on offense, right? So they're going to, it really just comes down to, I don't care who you install as offensive coordinator right now, it's going to have Kirk's hands all over the offense. And until that changes, things really won't change. So the name of the offensive coordinator is not what matters. It's the name of the head coach and the head coach's philosophy and thinking in regards to offense and the game of football as a whole is what matters.
Yeah, Andrew. Unfortunately, we have 25 years of evidence of that not going to change in the offensive philosophy. Like you said, it doesn't matter. Like Greg Davis came here with the Vince Young national championship offense, right?
Yep.
Nobody could have been more excited finally getting rid of Ken O'Keefe. Hell, but Ken O'Keefe was turning out top 60, top 50 offenses. What would we kill? We would kill for a top 60 offense right now.
We would kill for the 2020 offense, which was 31.8 points per game and 40th in the country in scoring. And that was Brian Ferentz as the offensive coordinator. But what did that team have? A great offensive line and plenty of talent at the wide receiver and tight end positions. This team has plenty of talent at the wide receiver and tight end positions and quarterback position. There's a missing piece.
Where it all starts. Starts.
But that's kind of what we're talking about, where we have to kind of scheme maybe around that, because that's what a lot of other teams in our situation would do.
Yeah.
So they would find some sort of a way to have mild success by scheming sort of around that, making the offensive line's job a little bit less difficult by quick passes, quick slants, quick screens, quick, whatever it is, they would find a way. But there's not adaptability on offense for Iowa like there is on defense.
Yeah.
Because, you talked, okay, enough about the problems with Iowa football last week. We need to look ahead to this week. Mel Tucker out. How much of an impact do you think it has on this game, if any?
If anything, probably a slight positive, right? Being a distraction to the team in the locker room and the rest of the staff. Maybe finally getting some closure, albeit, Mel Tucker did release a statement saying, "I'm going to sue your ass." So like, it's not officially done, but he is out of the building. So there might be a win-1 for the Gipper type of situation. in Iowa City on Saturday, but like, I don't know. I think we don't know who Michigan State is either. You know, as much as the national pundits have beaten them up, don't think that they're going to do anything. Whatever. They're 2-2, and their 2 losses are to number 8 Washington and an undefeated Maryland. 2 pretty good football teams. So, you know, I don't know if we know who Michigan State is yet, but we do know that they have a formidable running game with Nathan Carter. I mean, 73 carries, 369 yards, 4 tutties, just averaging just over 5 yards per carry. He can tote the rock, man. And, you know, I'm afraid maybe he has a little more Kirk Ferentz dose of offense of bleed the clock out, death by 1,000 paper cuts type of situation where it's going to be low scoring and something's going to have to happen in the fourth quarter to make it go the right way. I see it being close. I don't see Iowa covering in any situation. And probably the rest of the season, honestly. I don't see them covering despite the schedule. So I don't know. We're going to have to stop the run on defense, and we're going to have to create a turnover or 2 in the second half to get the win, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think this is a classic get right spot. I think everything's going wrong. Hawks are coming back home. It's Kinnick under the lights, which historically has been great for Iowa. 6:30 p.m. They're coming out in the all-black uniforms. I love it. I think this is kind of a get right spot, and I think there's turmoil within the Michigan State program. You could have players leaving as well because they want to keep their redshirt possibilities open. They want to keep their eligibility because they can leave the program in redshirt and gain an extra year of eligibility. I think we might see an exodus of players over the next couple of days from the Michigan State program, and it might leave them shorthanded. So I'm predicting the Hawks 2 cover and feeling good about Iowa. And I might be kicking myself when we come on post game, but I'm feeling a little bit better about this week. I think the team will flush it and kind of move on. So that's where I'm at with this game and with this week in general.
Okay, Andrew. So I'm going to flip it over to you. The question that you asked me. The season gets right. We go 10-2. We go to Indy. Are you satisfied with the overall result then? Because I'm still not.
Yeah, I am. I mean, we said before we got on here, and we heard it from David as well, and we kind of said Indy or bust, right? And that's as black and white as we could make it at the time. But it feels like, but we didn't really kind of understand how bad the Big Ten West was before the season. We thought there would be some legitimate competitors that Iowa would have to go through with Wisconsin, who I guess looks pretty decent. But we thought Illinois would be a lot better. We thought maybe Nebraska was revitalized. We thought maybe Minnesota would be good. And quite frankly, no one in the West looks good. They all have massive warts. It's like one of the worst divisions in football in the last, I don't know how many years. And so, I don't know. He's going to, you obviously want to go to Indy, right? If you can. There's nothing wrong with going to Indy, but when you get there, do you feel like you have a chance?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I don't think any West team should feel like they have a chance if they get there.
No.
So it's a really complicated question to say whether or not I'm satisfied with the results, because in one way, I don't want to say I'm dissatisfied with making a Big Ten championship game.
Yeah.
But also I am, because of the way we kind of look. It's more of, I'm satisfied.
But these are the bad goods that Kirk Ferentz have sold us for the last 5 years, Andrew. This is what he's wanting you to think. He's like, well, we won 10 games last year. David Eichel, I don't know if you know that or not, but we scored 20 points to get there a game and get boat raced 42-3. Maybe there is a little something to how you got there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, yeah, with this schedule, anybody can be fucking 10-2.
Yeah. I will say in regards to schedule, It did come out today. I saw somewhere where Iowa has faced the toughest schedule of all Big Ten teams. Not all Big Ten West, all Big Ten teams.
Because our first Big Ten team was Penn State.
Yeah. But it also factors in the teams that are on your schedule for the rest of the season too. So that's something. But what I guess what I'm trying to get at is I'd be satisfied with going to the Big Ten championship, but not satisfied with the overall trajectory of the Iowa football program. I could still feel bad about the trajectory of the program, given what you're talking about with the newcomers that are coming in and the offenses that they're bringing to the table and the offensive coaches that they're bringing to the table, because we know what Oregon, Washington, and USC have done offensively this year. And we see the offensive coaching that they're bringing in. UCLA too. UCLA obviously has good offensive coaching as well. So all four of the new Big Ten teams, good offensive coaches, and a couple of the. So yeah, again, Iowa has to change with the times in order to stay in any sort of relevance, because, like you said, Hawks could go 8-4 with next year's schedule. But who are those 4 losses to, and how bad do those 4 losses look?
Yeah.
And what does it mean nationally to go 8-4 in a 16 team and maybe even eventually a 20 team conference? You're middle of the pack. You're not making the championship with an 8-4.
Yeah,
You're
like
not,
it's different going 8-4 this year, right? And then have a chance to go into the Citrus Bowl or something,
yeah.
The old Capital One Bowl. You go 8-4 in the 16 team conference, you might be 8th or 9th. You might get like Motor City Bowl, some bullshit in Detroit on Christmas Eve, or some something shitty like that at 8-4. It's a different 8-4 for sure, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and just a lot of the frustration here is people see how great and elite really the defense and the special teams are.
Just
People
wasted year after year.
People see that and they go, if we could put together any sort of a semblance of a coherent offense, we're competing for a Big Ten championship at the very least. We're competing with Ohio State and Michigan for the Big Ten championship.
Yep. And there's just no evidence that we're going to see any change, Andrew. I have no hope. You can bring in all these great transfer players with NIL money and all this, that, and the other. But like, until you change the staff and your philosophy or change your philosophy, that like, it doesn't matter who you have in your 22, like it's just not going to matter.
All right. So are there any, you mentioned Nathan Carter. Are there any other players or things that stand out about Michigan State football to you? I honestly, I'll be honest, I've not done my Michigan State football research on this current year's team because I've kind of written them off like a lot of national people with all the turmoil and the mess going on. Is there anybody else that you're really thinking about that might be sort of a problematic for Iowa?
Individually, Andrew, no, not much. What I do know is they've boat raced bad teams and they've gotten boat raced by good teams. So like again, I don't know what to see from a mediocre Iowa team that we've been for the last 4 years, but still going to Indy, right? So I expect a 1-possession game, honestly. I think that they're going to be able to run the ball with Nathan Carter, and it's going to come down to a turnover on either side of who turns the ball over in the fourth quarter. And we'll leave that for the final cut segment.
All right. Sounds good. Let's go ahead and hear from our excellent sponsor, Kyle Lehman at Wintrust Mortgage.
Are you in the market for a new house and unsure of the mortgage process? Want to know that you have someone looking out for you? Kyle Lehman from Wintrust Mortgage is a down-to-earth, knowledgeable lender who can be there for you in your corner. He can work with you in any of the 50 states and is just what you need to expand your home search. Kyle will work with you through the entire process with little to no work from you. Take the worry of the mortgage process out of the equation so that you can focus on looking for your dream home. Contact Kyle at www.wintrust.com/Kyle-Lehman or call him at 515 473-0546.
Welcome back in, and it is time for the final cut. And I feel like we've been negative, but there's not really anywhere else you could go after last week, maybe except on the negative side of things. Let's talk about something extremely positive for my final cut segment here. Caitlin Clark, Nike commercial, awesome. Basketball season's right around the corner. The Hawks are going to be awesome in women's basketball this year. ESPN had them number 6. I think they should be higher than that. Recruiting going well for Bluter's bunch as well, because they have 4 top 100 recruits in 2024. Lisa Bluter has things rolling, and the team this year looks good, but also getting set up well for the post Caitlin Clark era of Iowa women's basketball also. So a lot to be excited about from that program for the Hawks.
Yeah, so the biggest thing for me for the Iowa women's team moving forward is the growth of Hannah Stolke replacing Monica Sonano there at the 5 spot, to see if she can be able to maneuver down there in the low post and be an offensive threat. She plays pretty good defense as a freshman last year, so we'll see if she can develop some offensive skills, because she's going to need it, when Caitlin Clark's getting double teamed most of the season. I'm pretty excited though that Iowa does play home and home against Maryland. So College Park's about 15 minutes from me, and their single game tickets go on sale here October 10th. So I will definitely be purchasing those. And, women's basketball out here is rarely a sellout. Maryland perennially is pretty good in the Big Ten and nationally under Brenda Fries. So the last time we went, Maryland wiped the floor with us out here in College Park. So we need some redemption, and I would like to be there to see it. So the ticket prices should be pretty low, reasonable, and it won't be a sellout. So it should be pretty good to get, or pretty easy to get in. Unlike getting in there at Carver Hawkeye Arena, a whole season sold out. I don't know how many tickets they sold for the Kinnick crossover, but it sounded like it was 45, 50,000 at this point. They moved the court to center field, the center of the field, not center field. You know what I meant, though. Look forward to see how Iowa looks in the Big Ten Conference moving forward. And like I said, I think Hannah Stolke is going to be the key contributor or key factor of how good of a season it will be for the Hawks. My final cut, Iowa's going to get the bounces in the fourth quarter. It's going to be a single possession game coming down to it. I'm looking at 17-7 final, Hawks win. Cooper DeJean didn't really look that great against Penn State last week. I think he gets a bounce back. I think he's going to exert his will and use his instincts more. I don't think he's going to be, shuttered like the wideout in Penn State. So I think Cooper DeJean has a big bounce back game Saturday night.
All right, I'll go Iowa 20, Michigan State 6, just to give my score prediction, and that'll do it for me. Anything else before we call it a night?
No, man. I hope you're right with you wanted to see a get right game, but I also don't want to have that false hope, right? Maybe Michigan State is the bad team that everybody's saying they are, and it'll be hard to read or what to take from it if we put up it's 35-7 or something like. Okay, so what? It's not Penn State, it's not Wisconsin. In fact, here's a hot take. I think Nebraska puts Michigan on upset alert Saturday.
Ooh, I like that. That's a great way to leave the show. We'll be back here on Saturday night. We promise this time we will be back here. We will take our lumps like men if we have to. Hopefully not. I don't know. We might have to burn this podcast down if we lose to Michigan State. But I appreciate all of you listening, all of you tuning in. Our fans are excellent. Our sponsors are excellent. Three Beards Media is awesome for letting us do this. So we hope you all have a great night, and go Hawks on Saturday night.
Go Hawks.